Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Gifford, and today's topic is 04, Algebraic Expressions. And after this lesson, students will be able to use the order of operations to evaluate algebraic expressions. So what are the order of operations? We might think of it as, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The P is for parentheses. Not only does that include these kinds of parentheses that you see, but it's also any brackets or braces, and sometimes even a fraction bar where you might have something on top and the bottom. So that's the P, parentheses. E is exponents. So once you figure out whether or not you have grouping symbols, you look inside and see if there are any exponents, also known as powers. The next one actually goes together, the next two go together. You multiply and divide from left to right. So whichever one you see first, starting from the left all the way over to the right, you multiply and divide together. And then last but not least, these two go together as well. You're going to add and subtract. And just like multiplying and dividing, you also do addition and subtraction from left to right. So once you've started inside the grouping symbols, you've done all the exponents, go through and do any multiplication and division, and then you go through and do any adding and subtracting. So let's practice some problems. The first one is we're going to evaluate x minus 5 plus y if x is 15 and y is equal to negative 7. I'm not exactly sure why this little extra t's got in there, so I'm just going to cross those off. Now with each of these I'm going to do kind of a tell and show. On the left hand side is telling, meaning telling the steps that we're taking a look at, and the show is I'm going to show you numerically what we're doing. So the first one is we need to substitute. So that means we're going to take 15 and put it in place of x, and we're going to take 7, oops, wrong place, sorry, and we're going to take 7 negative 7 and put it in place of y. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. So we have 15 minus 5 plus negative 7. From here, the only thing that we have to do, because there isn't anything inside any grouping symbols, it's all adding and subtracting. So again, we're going to add or subtract from left to right. So in here, the first thing that we do is the 15 minus 5. 15 minus 5 gives us 10. And we have 10 plus negative 7. And 10 plus negative 7 is the same as 10 minus 7. So in this case, our answer to this problem is 3. Okay, let's take a look at the next examples. We have two of them. We're going to evaluate each of these expressions for the values of k, n, and p as are listed. And so the first one is 2k plus n over p minus 3. So just like before, we're going to substitute. And so we have 2k plus n, and again when a number is next to a letter it means to multiply. So I have 2 times negative 2. That is not a very good negative sign. I don't know what's there. Close enough. 2 times negative 2 plus n is negative 4 all over, and we have p minus 3. P is 5, so we're going to do 5 minus 3. So from here, we take a look at what else from order of operations. The fraction bar is a grouping symbol, so we can do everything on the top and then everything on the bottom and then simplify as we can. So that's my second step, is the grouping symbol. And that's just a reminder to do everything in the numerator and then in the denominator. So from here, what can I do in the top? I can do my multiplication, And in the bottom, there's no multiplication to do. So I'm going to do this 2 times negative 2 first, which is negative 4. And so then I have negative 4. So now I take a look at it. Is there any other multiplying and dividing? The answer is no. So from here, I do any adding or subtracting that I have, both in the numerator and in the denominator. From here, negative 4 plus negative 4 is negative 8. And 5 minus 3 is 2. And now from here we can simplify further. Again, this is a division symbol when you have a fraction, and negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So there's our solution to the first one. The second one, we have negative 3 times the quantity of k squared plus 2n. So I've got negative 3 times the quantity k squared, so it's negative 2 squared plus 2 times, and n is negative 4. So my showing and telling, or my telling and showing, that was my substitution. From here I'm going to take a look at the grouping symbols, which in this case is just the parentheses. And what do you see inside the parentheses? We see exponents, so that's the first thing that we need to do. I keep my negative 3. I have an exponent, negative 2 squared. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And then I have plus 2 times negative 4. What comes after exponents? Multiplying and dividing. So I have 2 times negative 4 in my parentheses. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And then I have my adding and subtracting inside the parentheses, so still I keep my negative 3, and I have 4 plus negative 8 is negative 4, and the only last thing I have to do is to multiply, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12, so positive 12 is my answer. Okay, last example. In this case, we have these vertical bars. It reminds me of an equal sign turned upside down. What are those called? Those are called absolute value symbols. And just as a reminder, absolute value of it just tells you how far it is from 0 on a number line. This is also considered a grouping symbol. So we're going to do everything inside the absolute value symbols first, and then from there we're going to solve. So in this case, our first thing that we're going to say that we're doing is we're going to substitute. And so we have 3 times the absolute value of a minus b. A is negative 2 minus b is negative 4 plus, oops, I got to write a little smaller, 2 times the quantity of c minus 5. So 3 minus 5. Okay, so from here we take a look at it. We need to know that absolute value is a grouping symbol. So we're going to do what's inside each of those absolute values first. And the only thing to do inside this first one is the subtraction. There aren't any exponents, there's no multiplying and dividing. And what's the rule for subtracting a negative? It's the same as adding a positive. And so negative 2 plus positive 4 is positive 2. And then we have plus 2 times the absolute value of 3 minus 5, same thing. Subtracting a positive is like adding a negative. So 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2. And now we do complete the absolute value part. So the absolute value of 2 is positive 2, so we're going to end up doing 3 times 2 plus 2 times the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. So from here we're going to do our multiplication, because multiplying and dividing come before adding and subtracting. So we have 6 plus 4, and then all we have left to do is add. So 6 plus 4 is 10. So just as a quick reminder, the order of operations, keep in mind that parentheses are the curvy ones as well as the square ones, and braces, and also absolute values. So that is our lesson on solving algebraic expressions.